We power hope. We power dreams. We power life. But there's one power we all have. The power to make a difference. The power to vote. Entergy. The power of people.
This program originally aired on May 17, 2006. Since that time, Congress has authorized full funding for Louisiana's Housing Recovery Plan for hurricane-affected parishes. The plan is called The Road Home.
Good evening and welcome to Louisiana Public Square. I'm Beth Courtney.
And I'm Craig Freeman. Tonight, we explore the state's plan to assist homeowners and renters reestablish their homes and apartments in communities hit by Hurricanes Katrina and Rita.
Well, wind and water destroyed or damaged hundreds of thousands of dwellings in the wake of the storms. Governor Kathleen Blanco established the Louisiana Recovery Authority. The LRA is responsible for developing short and long-term plans to rebuild hurricane-affected parishes. On May 10th, the Louisiana legislature approved the LRA plan for providing housing grants to those who register for the program. Let's examine some of the highlights of the plan. Everyone knows that Hurricanes Katrina and Rita devastated the entire southern section of Louisiana. Near the Texas border, Rita damaged hundreds of houses as far north as Vernon Parish. In Vermilion Parish, over 6,800 homes were severely damaged or destroyed. In the east, the city of Slidell, in St. Tammany Parish, reported 4,000 housing units seriously damaged by Katrina's wind and water. The metro New Orleans area had the largest share of devastation. Flooding and/or wind severely damaged or destroyed more than 44,000 owner-occupied homes. Nearly 79,000 rental units were severely damaged or destroyed. Statewide, the storms damaged or destroyed 123,000 owner-occupied homes. An additional 82,000 rental properties were totally or partially ruined. The Louisiana Recovery Authority is the planning and coordinating agency charged with implementing the state's post-hurricane recovery efforts. The LRA's response to the need for repair and reconstruction of hurricane-ravaged homes, rental properties, and other critical infrastructure, such as hospitals, schools, and sewage and water systems, is a plan it calls the Road Home. The state says it needs $12.1 billion to fully implement the plan. So far, Congress has committed to $6.2 billion in community development block grants and $1.7 billion in hazard mitigation funds. Louisiana is counting on Congress to appropriate an additional $4.2 billion to cover the shortfall. To qualify for homeowner benefits, you must have owned and occupied the home as your main residence at the time of the hurricane. Your home must be a single or double-unit structure, including duplexes. FEMA must declare that your home was destroyed or that it suffered major or severe damage. Homeowners who were uninsured but should have carried insurance, for example, those who live in a floodplain but did not have flood insurance, will receive only 70% of the full incentive grant. In calculating the amount of assistance eligible homeowners can receive, all grants will be based on the pre-storm value of the house and the amount of damage incurred. Only uninsured, uncompensated damages are covered. Federal law prohibits duplication of benefits. Homeowners whose damages were 100% covered by insurance and/or FEMA repair payments are still eligible to receive a mitigation grant. They may also be eligible to receive an affordable loan. Total assistance to all homeowners is capped at $150,000. Homeowners will have the right to appeal pre-storm valuation and percentage of loss calculations. Homeowners can choose one of 4 options offered by the Road Home Plan: repair, rebuild, accept a buyout and relocate within Louisiana, or sell and leave the state. Although there are many scenarios for each of these options, here is a simple example of how the plan works. An underinsured home with a pre-storm value of $153,000 is declared to be 100% damaged. Elevating the home to meet FEMA standards, so-called mitigation costs, add another $30,000 to the costs. The total bill to rebuild is $183,000. Because the home was underinsured, Insurance payments equal $50,000 in this example. The home is eligible for a FEMA repair payment of $10,500 and a road home mitigation grant of $30,000. This leaves a gap of $92,500. The road home plan would cover this gap with an incentive grant check for that amount. The owner's total reimbursement from all sources is $183,000, equaling his out-of-pocket expenses. For the same house, if the owner decides to relocate within Louisiana, the state will pay up to the amount of uninsured damages based on the pre-storm value of the home. Insurance and FEMA benefits would be deducted from the cost of damage, and the incentive grant would be the same as in the repair-rebuild scenario, $92,500. So again, he would have no out-of-pocket expenses. If the owner chooses to sell and move out of Louisiana, the state will buy the home for 60% of its pre-storm value, minus insurance and FEMA repair payments, or the cost of uninsured damages, whichever is less. The sell option is generally the least favorable, but the goal of the LRA Road Home program is to encourage people to come back to their communities. The Road Home plan also includes incentives for large developers, small rental property owners, and other entities to encourage affordable rents and mixed-income neighborhoods. The state hopes to start mailing checks to those who have registered for the Road Home plan sometime in late summer.
As you can see, we've expanded our usual Louisiana Public Square format to bring in a larger studio audience. Most of our audience members are homeowners whose property was damaged by Hurricane Rita or Katrina. They're here because they have questions about the Road Home plan, and to answer those questions, we have a distinguished panel of experts. Governor Kathleen Blanco created the Louisiana Recovery Authority to develop and implement plans for the state's recovery efforts. Walter Leger chairs the LRA's Housing Task Force. Mr. Leger is from St. Bernard Parish and, unfortunately, faces the same decisions as many in our audience. State Senator Diana Bajoie represents New Orleans and is the vice chair of the Housing Task Force, and Gil Jamieson, FEMA Deputy Director for the Gulf Coast Recovery. Mr. Jamieson serves as the key point of contact for Don Powell, Federal Coordinator of Gulf Coast Rebuilding. Our first topic of discussion tonight is determining eligibility requirements and calculating benefits. We'll begin with the basics. According to the LRA, many of the questions they receive are about eligibility and how assistance is calculated. Let's start with our questions. We've got a good one tonight from Brenda. Brenda, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what your question is?
Sure. Hi, my name is Brenda Bolware. I'm a resident of St. Bernard Parish, so I'm just like you, Walter. And first of all, I'd like to thank you and all the people who are at LRA for doing this for the people of Louisiana. I have two questions. First of all, I would like to know how and who will determine the damage or the loss of the properties of homes. And my second question is, how long will this take?
That's going to be obviously one of the fundamental aspects of the program. And initially, FEMA made some inspections of property and made some allocations of the percentage of damage. That's kind of a starting point, but the program administration contractor actually will be expected to be hiring home inspectors and actually be making inspections of your home and giving a relative determination of the percentage of damage. You'll have an opportunity to appeal that if you disagree with it. And that's basically how that gets determined at the outset.
And how long do you expect this process to take, sir?
Well, we're hoping really within the next few days, next week or so, the contract administrator will be on hand. And as I appreciated the solicitation for offer, the qualifications for the people that bid, the number one qualification is how quick can you get online and how quick can you move. We're hoping to get the, right now, people need to be joining and registering for the Road Home program. And we've got over 70,000 people of an expected 123,000 have registered so far. Once we get all of that information in, the program administrator on hand, and hopefully Congress before the end of this month in a conference committee on the supplemental appropriations bill approves $4.2 billion. We're looking toward hopefully the end of the summer.
Hi, I'm Dinah Landry. I'm from Cameron Parish, and I'm with the Cameron Council on Aging and Community Action. So I'm dealing with a lot of folks in Cameron who are waiting not necessarily for building materials, but for insurance companies to make settlements with our folks. My question to you today is that going to put our people that much further back whenever they're applying for the assistance through the road home, because of the fact that the insurance companies are now taking us to court and they're not paying, even with the policies that everyone has. And if you're going to take that into consideration in the formula, does that put us that much further back?
What I assume you're talking about is you have people that didn't have flood insurance but
No,
had...
sir. We have flood insurance.
had
We have
flooded?
insurance policies, and the policies are not paying.
Wow.
Homeowners policies are not
And
paying.
homeowner, I understand about the homeowners,
Yes, sir.
homeowners issue. But you know, as I appreciate it, what we're trying to do in the program is account for the amount of money that's been offered to you. And then if the grant is great, if the grant is greater, the grant should then be greater. If you get no insurance, settlement, then you have no insurance essentially. So the grant gets greater. However, if you recover, you may have to give an assignment to the entity, to the LRA, or to the state for your benefits, and the state can recover that back.
Okay, so even if the insurance is in limbo at this point, and they've offered $1,500 on a $75,000 policy, so that's all it's going to be based on at this time.
That's what I always say. That's why the Lord created lawyers. You know, that's why you need to be getting a lawyer and prosecuting
Oh yes, sir. There are plenty of lawyers.
I understand.
We're taking care of that.
Some others would disagree with that, but no. I mean, the claims need to be processed. But we've tried to set the program up such that we don't have to wait. You don't have to wait. But nonetheless, if the benefit ultimately gets paid and it's adjudicated that it's owed to the property owner, then the benefit goes to the state because you've been advanced the benefit.
Okay, and if our people are rebuilding within the flood zone areas, if they're going back to Cameron, and all of Cameron has been declared a flood zone area, okay, that is something that they would be eligible for based on the road home program, as long as they meet the flood zone requirements with the elevation and everything.
That's right. That's a thing FEMA's particularly interested in. Our policy, the governor told us at the beginning, safer, stronger, smarter. So we need to, as we rebuild. And
2 points. And on your first point, I am very familiar with what's going on out there, and the insurance companies are. It's a question of whether this is wind damage or water damage, and the benefit is uncertain. And Walter laid it out exactly right. And that is, if there is no benefit or there's uncertainty of the benefit, they're going to go ahead and process these things. And in the event that there is a settlement in your favor, then the duplication rule kicks in. On the rebuilding, I'm very happy for your question. It's a tough question out there for you in Cameron Parish because there's you are at risk, and there's some deep flooding out there from storm surge and that you've experienced. But what we're trying to do is FEMA working with the state is that we just want to make the state more sustainable. We want to use this opportunity where there is damage to the infrastructure to build it back smarter and stronger. And so what our encouragement is to take those guidance from the advisory-based flood elevations that are there in Cameron and Calcasieu, and to use that as guides for where you should be building. Because regardless of whether you're on the southeastern side of the state with levees or out there, there's always going to be some element of risk, and what we're trying to do is mitigate that and reduce those opportunities for damage.
I promised my husband I probably wouldn't say anything, but I've been biting at the bit. First of all, the ICC claim that was in our flood policy. My husband and I built our home above FEMA regulations when we built it 20 years ago.
Right.
So we were at 10.6, our elevation level.
Right.
We have nothing left to our home. When I tell you that desk has more on it than my house has left, you have more than I do. My concern is, first with ICC, I've called and asked for the $30,000 relocation. I've moved my entire family north. We're building a new home in the upper part of the parish, and I cannot qualify for that money because I am not moving my structure. I have nothing left to my structure. I wish I could move it, but I can't. So I want to know, is that a glitch in the claim, or is that just my State Farm agent telling me he's not going to pay me that money?
I don't think it's a glitch in the claim, and the way that the state has put this program together, while you're not qualifying or you potentially may not qualify for that particular aspect of the benefit, the losses that you're experiencing, if you don't get it here, you're going to get it someplace else. And so what we're trying to do, and for those of you that aren't familiar, it's called the increased cost of construction provision of the national, your flood insurance policy. And what we're saying is that if you have substantial damage to your property, which obviously you did, that there's $30,000 available in order to meet the mitigation requirements associated with building back. And what they're saying is that they want that $30,000 applied to that structure in that particular location because, quite frankly, it would be, if we're conveying that benefit, you know, and you're moving to...
The catch is, it's not there, so I cannot comply, and I could use that money to rebuild my home somewhere else, to relocate my family somewhere else. And so that's $30,000 that I don't have in insurance, plus the $360,000 that State Farm refuses to pay me because of an insurance problem. You know, and that's where I'd like to address Governor Blanco. We want to start our lives over. We're middle class families. We will start over. We just need those people who promised us that they were going to pay us. And your $150,000 could go to people in more need than we are if our insurance companies would pay. Your $150,000 would help a lot more people than us in Cameron if insurance companies would pay us. And that's all we're asking.
The question that I had was, the paperwork refers to the $10,500. I think that's a FEMA award, and I wanted to know exactly what that was referring to, the FEMA assistance, because it looked like it was always $10,500 in the example.
There's a grant that FEMA has, several grants that FEMA has, the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. There's also a grant that FEMA has for its individual assistance where we can award money to a homeowner who has minor damage to their home. And so I think, while it wasn't specified there, I think it's one of those two grants, probably the Minimal Repair Program grant for individual assistance. And it's up to $10,500.
Hi, I'm from Orleans Parish, and my house was completely destroyed, and we are below the floodplain elevation and over 50% damaged as assessed by the city. So we feel that we have no option but to tear down the house and rebuild. My question is, how are we going to get assistance? I'm not sure how it's going to be calculated. Will we be considered to be, for instance, 100% damaged, since we need to tear down the house and rebuild it? That's one question.
You want me to?
Well, maybe Senator Bajoie.
Well, I like to say that one of the things is we are going to have counseling in place. I think that's going to be so important to help people to know just what they're eligible for, and just to help you make a decision. Because just like you said in your case, you're under the assumption that you need to tear your house down. But I don't know, and maybe there may be some other options, but the whole purpose of the counseling is to help you make that decision.
I've spent quite a bit of time researching this on my own, and I'm quite sure that that really is the best option for me. For instance, I'm on a combination of slab and piers, and it would really be just not even close to cost effective to raise the home, to elevate it. And so I have a question you haven't answered, whether or not that would be considered to be 100% damaged, or if there will be another calculation.
There will be a damage assessment, but it's going to be like with your automobile. At some point there's a certain level of repair required that they declare your car totaled. Well, I think the same thing is true with your house, and that's the way we've budgeted this program. But for each of you who's out there contemplating, not only would you get a repair grant, for the incentive grant to repair your house, but you'd also be eligible for the mitigation grant that can pay for elevating your house, putting on hurricane shutters or roof straps to secure it, or finally to just meet the compliance with the state's new building code. A lot of folks are concerned that that's going to add cost to the repairs or the rebuilding. Those are also covered in the mitigation grant. So my assumption is, I don't know how much damage your house had, but if it was in fact reaches that level of totaled, it will probably be 100% damage, as you've described.
So I have a question then regarding the mitigation grant. If we're actually starting from scratch, building a new house, are we eligible for mitigation money for putting on, wind-resistant windows, hurricane shutters, for the high cost of building a foundation that's elevated to meet the current floodplain elevations? Drainage systems, energy efficiency, all those things that you've actually mentioned in your plan, would we be actually eligible for that?
Depending on the cost of your repaired house and the cost of those mitigation costs, the total assistance is $150,000.
Right. So I just have one more question. I'm sorry. Okay, because you have the 3 tiers of assistance, right? So we've covered the incentive grant and the mitigation costs. So what about the affordable loan? It seems very gray to me what the terms of the affordable loan are going to be. And I'm afraid that what's going to happen is you're going to say, oh, no, you have good credit, so you need to just take on an additional $500 a month in your mortgage payment to cover the cost yourself.
The affordable loan is, in fact, as you describe, it's meant to be an affordable loan under the definitions that HUD, the Department of Housing at the federal level, has established. And they basically say that no one should have to spend, or no family should have to spend more than 30% of their income on household expenses, meaning rent and utilities or a mortgage payment. And so if your income exceeds that level, then you'd qualify for an affordable. If your costs of household utilities and rent and mortgage exceed that level, you'd be eligible for an affordable loan. If they don't, then you wouldn't be eligible. It's an income-based formula to make sure that people have the means to get back in a house. But that's for costs that exceed the damage to your house. I mean, everybody's going to be made whole for the cost of their damages to their house and get a mitigation grant. The affordable loan is if the costs that you want and need to repair your house exceed that.
All this capped at $150,000, though.
That's correct.
And my name is Stacy Washington. I'm from the Gentilly neighborhood in New Orleans, Louisiana. And my house has been torn down. It was demolished a week ago. And I want to know, how will you assess my damage? FEMA came out in December and did an inspection. That was the last I heard of them. When you call, they say, oh, we're still reviewing it. We'll call you back, or we'll get back with you. I haven't heard anything. The only assessment that I have currently is the one from the city. That gave me 50.86%. But my water was to the ceiling. I was on the slab, as the previous lady said. So I want to know.
Well, let me, that's a really important question. And unfortunately, in your situation, it's already torn down, but nonetheless, you're going to start at least at that 50.86%. Is that what they gave you?
The city gave me.
That's what the city gave you? Well, then we'll be getting information from FEMA. When you sign on with the road home plan, by the way, Governor, I have now registered for the road home plan. The governor was picking on me about the fact that I hadn't registered. So when you sign on, they ask, you're advised that you're going to have to give authority for FEMA and us, and not me individually, but the administrators, to exchange information so that can be determined. That determination will be made, and presumptively what FEMA has determined was your level or percentage of damage starts out. Now, if you have the opportunity to come in and show, and inspectors of the program have the opportunity to come look at whatever evidence you have. You may have little evidence left if you've torn it down already. But whatever evidence you have, if you took photographs or otherwise to demonstrate a greater percentage of damage, then that will be something that'll be looked at. And what I want to send a message loud and clear to everybody who's considering doing that. The governor told us at the beginning, we don't want to slow down the progress of pioneers, of people that are already out there, getting on with their lives, not waiting for government, not waiting for the insurance companies. A lot of us, my friends from St. Bernard Parish, we're still kind of on the fence. We're going to repair, rebuild, tear down, relocate, or otherwise, because we're kind of waiting. What are we waiting for? A lot of people are waiting for another hurricane season. I say, good for you, the pioneers that have already gotten started and made the call. So you shouldn't be punished. And the governor has told us you're not going to be punished. And that's how the plan's structured.
Keep all of your records. Keep all of your receipts. Make good notations of all the money that you spend yourself on your repairs. And also note the sources of the monies that you may be receiving. From your insurance or from the early FEMA housing payments, housing assistance payments, and any kinds of programs that you may be eligible for. I think that one of the mistakes that people may make is making assumptions of eligibility for our programs. No one should assume that they are not eligible. For instance, you may be eligible for mitigation monies if you're fully insured and fully covered, and you may need to lift your house or strengthen it in some way, in some fashion. So the most important thing that I think people should do is register for the Road Home program. If you are registered, you will be contacted by a financial counselor, by the contractor, who is going to work with the individual families to determine your eligibility. And I think that a lot of people will be eligible for some monies in the end. But we will never know that unless folks are registered for the program.
You can go online at www.louisianarebuilds.info.
Spell Louisiana out in that case.
Spell Louisiana and plural rebuilds.info. Or you can call 1-888-ROAD, ROAD, the number 2, LA.
If you register, then a counselor will contact you. Senator Bajoie, you talked about a counselor. Somebody will contact you. You don't have to initiate that?
Eventually someone will contact you. And one of the other things I just wanted to add on while I was thinking about it is that there's no means test. I think that's so important. We fought very hard to make sure that everyone was eligible. And so it doesn't matter about your income and how much you make. The thing is, if you suffer damages and you meet that eligibility requirement of living in the home and some of the other requirements, there is no means test, and I think that's so important. But not only will there be counselors, but there's also going to be mortgage specialists, people who specialize in helping people with finances. But the counselors are really there for those people who maybe in many cases have never had to utilize those services and are really undecided about what direction they want to go in. And we have many elderly people who had homes that were paid for, and they have big decisions ahead, whether or not they're going to rebuild or move into some other type of housing. And so that's why we need counselors to work with many of these people to help them make the right decision, the best decision for them.
I only got 2 feet of water in my house, but that meant mold all the way to the ceilings. That means my house is gutted, the roof is damaged, but FEMA says I don't need help. I'd like to know what this panel has to say. What about the people in the middle? What about the people who were not wiped out, but whose house is not habitable? And incidentally, I also paid off my mortgage with my insurance money, so I don't have anything to rebuild.
I'd be happy to look into the specifics of your case and chat with you a little bit further. If you've had 2 feet of water in your house, FEMA saying that they wouldn't help is the wrong answer. You're certainly eligible for temporary housing assistance with that level of water. Whether or not you would be eligible for a hazard mitigation grant program fund is a separate question, but that question really hasn't even started to be answered at this particular point. So there's nothing that I could think of that would exclude you from receiving some benefit, certainly in terms of temporary housing assistance, and I think forward-looking in terms of some of these rebuilding programs.
I should clarify, I did receive rental assistance, rent payment assistance.
Great.
In the front row, we have a question here.
Hi, my name is Delise Shelton, and I'm listening to the Road to Home program, and I would like to know, how does your Road to Home program help renters? It seems like the program is all focused on people that own homes, and there were many renters in the city of New Orleans that lost personal property. So what type of Road to Home program do you have to help renters?
Well, let me say, one thing the governor told us to do early along was to develop, as number one priority, let's get people back into their homes. Let's start working on their homes. But as a close to number one priority, we need to start returning the workforce housing back to the region, back to the whole state, from Cameron to Calcasieu to St. Bernard and Plaquemines to New Orleans. And so what we've set aside in the Road Home plan is about, a fully funded plan, about $1.5 billion of assistance. But the assistance actually goes to the development of about maybe as many as 51,000 rental units. So it's not assistance directly to renters. But the idea is if you're from New Orleans or anywhere where the rental properties have been destroyed, where we had 84,000 rental units before the hurricane, you know that rents have gone sky high. You cannot move into a rental property at anywhere near what you used to be able to rent property for. So what the governor indicated is we need to address two things: the development of low-income housing, mixed-use housing on a large scale, and help people who own property on a smaller basis, small rental units, doubles, fourplexes, and that type of thing. Get those units back. Now, in that case, the way the way we look at it is it's kind of a business, but not really. If you own a double and you live in it, you live in half of it, you rent the other half of it, like a lot of people do. That's what I did when I was much younger. Then you can treat that house like it's your home and put it under the homeowner assistance plan, or you can treat it like the small rental unit owners program. And there are loans, no interest, silent mortgage loans available to the property owners to help them repair, to help them maintain their rental rates at market rates or below. And you get a loan, and a loan silent mortgage, a low interest or no interest silent mortgage loan means basically the mortgage sits there quietly. You don't have to pay it back till you transfer the property. So it's almost like a grant, but the state gets paid back. In return, you keep your rental rates low, at either market rates or lower, and you can get between a $25,000 or $50,000 and $75,000 per unit grant. That's the owner of the rental properties. Now, how does that assist the renters? Well, it pushes at least it provides some housing with lower rental rates available for people to move back into. Meanwhile, FEMA's been doing a lot to help renters and assist renters find other housing.
And what is that? What are they doing to assist renters?
Primarily on the temporary housing assistance side of things. What we're trying to do now, if I don't know your particular circumstances, but we're getting folks in travel trailers, and what we're also trying to do is locate rental properties so that what we can do is look for places to get you back into a rental property while you're in that temporary housing assistance. And obviously our first choice is if we go in and we rent up a number of different places, and we'll lease you right into a property if we can find them. But as we all know, in the situation in New Orleans in particular, the amount of rental stock that's available down there is not great. So we're there to provide that temporary housing assistance until some of these rental properties come back online.
One of the things that many of us, especially the members of Louisiana Legislative Black Caucus, been trying to make sure that it's included in this is a way for many of the people who are renting to become homeowners. And one of the first things the governor did early on before the Road Home program was we put some additional monies in the Housing Finance Agency to make available low-interest loans. But we're also looking at down the line, we've asked, well, is people decide to participate in the buyout program, what happens to these homes, these houses? And one of the things we're looking at is hopefully down the line making some of these available to housing agencies to offer them back to people at low interest in order that many renters can become homeowners. So let me just say, it certainly is, I know that you don't want to continue renting all your life, and it's certainly, we should utilize this as an opportunity to hopefully put more people in homes and become homeowners.
We're going to take just a brief break as we continue with Louisiana Public Square. Before the break, we had some questions about transferability and about how people would get new homes after things are settled with Hurricane Rita and Katrina.
Who wants to take that? Governor, how about you?
Well, I think there'll be a lot of different housing options out there for a potential homeowner who has not owned a home before. For instance, Habitat for Humanity is in the process of building out a number of homes. They will all be built according to the new specifications, according to the new floodplain recommendations, according to the hurricane safety regulations that are now in place. And so I would advise potential homeowners to look very carefully before you jump into something to make sure that the house is properly elevated, or you very well may have a lot of trouble getting flood insurance in the future if it's not. But I think that there will be a lot of opportunities for properly designed homes.
Nikki, I wanted to come back. You had a question a little bit earlier. Can you stand up for?
I'm from Gentilly. I'm a neighborhood organizer, and I have lots of questions for you guys. But one of the things that, if I understand the program correctly, is that people there are going to be many people in my neighborhood, for instance, that will not be coming back, whether they're elderly or they've just moved on. And I'm really encouraging them to sell their property prior to the road recovery program coming into place and transferring those benefits to the new owner, which would create home ownership opportunities for folks, if I understand it correctly. Do I?
Absolutely, and I think that's outstanding advice, because once again we want to get into not delaying people from moving on, and as a consequence of that, a major debate we all had with the governor and her staff and otherwise was what to do with those benefits. To what degree can you restrict people's maneuverability for their own futures? And one of the things that will be possible is and right now, sometimes it may be better. The governor was telling a group last week, reminding them, if you don't like the benefits under the Road Home program in terms of the buyout, you can try to sell it on the open market, and you may get a better deal, and you should do that. But by the way, while you're selling it, assign your benefits, and that needs to be calculated, or your potential benefits, that needs to be calculated in the price you sell your home for, knowing that the purchaser may be entitled to some benefits under this program otherwise. Absolutely, in areas that you're from, Gentilly, and even in St. Bernard, and I know in Lakeview, people are selling their homes and their properties now.
But it needs to be someone who will live in that house, who will own that house and live in that house, not speculating, not just buying up a whole lot of houses and using the road home money to make the repairs.
Who's going to make sure that occurs?
That's all part of the agreements, and the contractor is going to make sure.
That's a 3-year requirement for home ownership. So this is, you can't sell your house to a developer who's buying every house in the neighborhood. You can do that, but that developer would not be eligible for any of the benefits. So you sell it to a homeowner who's going to agree to live in that house as an owner-occupant for 3 years, then they'll be eligible for the benefits. Now, the benefits are going to differ because we're going to take into account how much profit you made on the sale of that house, because that's a relevant factor, just like your insurance payments would be and how much you got to repair your house.
Nicole?
Yes, thank you. My name is Nicole Allen, and I live in Jefferson Parish. I lived in Metairie before the storm, and I was renting an apartment, which took on 4 to 6 foot of water, so all of our possessions were gone. And I'm currently living in Marrero, and I'm looking to purchase a home, so I am interested in all of these programs. I am interested in becoming a homeowner. I'm just looking into the HUD program that there is for down payment, 100% financing and things like that. My question today, though, is about renting. With the Road Home program, the rental property owners are available, have these loans or grants that are available to them as long as they keep their rent affordable. But who or what's going to determine what is affordable? Are we going to be looking at pre-Katrina rental rates, or should we be looking for something that's just less expensive than what's out there right now?
Well, basically, I'm not an expert on HUD. Andy can probably answer it better, but basically HUD determines what the fair market value is relative to the area median income and those type of things. And so those things are kind of objectively determined. It's probably the pre-Katrina. It's probably the pre-Katrina rate.
My name's Christian Saunier. I live in New Orleans in the Broadmoor area. The city says I had 53% damage to my home, and I want to go back. I want to rebuild. My question's about affordability. Let's say I qualify for the maximum for the Road Home plan. If the rising price of materials and labor continues to rise, that might not go far in getting me made back whole again. Is there any consideration that the Road Home has given to the rising cost of labor and materials?
Applause.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, and that's the fundamental problem. That's the fundamental problem in the program. But no, the maximum is the max. But the real question is how you get to computing the max. For example, I got a call on a radio show a few weeks ago. The lady said, I have an $800,000 home in Lakeview. That's not going to nearly help me get back into my home, the $150,000 cap. So I asked a few questions. How much flood insurance did you have? $250,000 in flood insurance, and you probably had water 10 feet or more, close. Your whole downstairs destroyed. Right. How much is it going to cost to repair it? Well, about $325,000. So what the program essentially, the concept is, the problem that she's having is the gap between her $250,000 and the $325,000. So she's going to get only $75,000, but that's a lot more than some people are getting. But that's going to help her repair her house, and she's back in an $800,000 home. So to some degree, it always is going to depend on what's your individual situation, and sometimes there's not going to be enough money. if there's not enough money, there's still the possibility of affordable loans or even conventional financing and loans and even SBA loans on top of it. So yes and no, but it really depends. There's going to be 123,000 different variations, and the cost of construction is going out of sight. There's no question about it. We hope to some degree we catch it. We catch it most of the time, but it's not going to be all the time. You're right.
You had a question about SBA loans and how they were going to be affected.
Where if you get a SBA loan or any other type of loan, will that affect how much assistance you get?
Generally, no, except that the contract, your SBA contract, probably requires you to pay it off with any grant that you get from the program. But your grant might not be big enough to pay it all off. But then what happens is that's good, because then at least you've got the money, but you pay the loan off with it. You no longer have the loan. You've got a grant instead of the loan.
Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
If I could just add on to that as well, this is again a question of how these programs are put together. One of the things that we can't do is duplicate the benefits from these other programs as well. So the notion is that if you're eligible for one of these programs for the same loss that you've experienced, then it can't be paid twice through two different programs.
I have a question from Geraldine Davis. Geraldine, where are you, Geraldine? Ah, there you are, here in the back. Craig's coming to you.
Hi, I'm Geraldine Davis from St. Bernard. My question was similar to this other gentleman's. I am very much concerned with the inflation factor. It's about 30% at this time and rising daily. That is never factored into something like the buyout or SBA loans. My loan was canceled because SBA determined that my amount of damages was almost to the dollar what my flood insurance payoff was. However, it's going to cost me $60,000 more to get back to less than what I had before.
Is there anything that we can do to help?
Depending on your fair market value of your property before the storm, and the difference and the amount of damage, you may be getting a grant on top of your damage, on top of your insurance to complete the repair. And remember, there's four options on the program, three that probably most appeal to you. I think probably two: the repair option, which is help repair it in place. You got your flood insurance, and if you're short, you may be eligible for an incentive grant to do that. And as Andy keeps pointing out, mitigation money to meet the cost. Some increased cost to comply with the building code. If you want to rebuild, that is tear it down and start all over, same kind of computation, but then it gets to a feasibility question. The other one is a relocation option. But now, to some degree, it doesn't, dollar for dollar take that into consideration, but to some degree, when you do the calculations on your fair market value, your insurance, your percentage of loss, you may find that you get pretty close to it. And then again, there's the possibility of an affordable loan depending on your situation.
We, at work, we use the formula that you've published on the internet. And nobody came out with any benefit from the buyout.
Well, about the only way that can usually is that they get plenty flood insurance. And, we all want, one of the big controversies among legislators, among all of us that we debated and we thought about was we didn't want to have to count flood insurance. We'd like to give people money, but federal law, as Mr. Jamieson points out, requires we can't duplicate under Stafford Act and under HUD requirements federal law. But I'd be happy to sit down with you and do the calculation
but
with you.
But we still want you to apply so that an honest evaluation can be made for you.
I did. My home, the flood insurance adjuster gave it a pre-Katrina value of $145. The payoff was not contents, but the dwelling, $103. We used the formula at work with those figures, and the parish inspectors, the civil engineering firm that was hired immediately after the hurricane, determined that my damages are 30 to 60%. Using the high end of 60%, I still come out with zip from the buyout.
Mm-hmm. But then that's what Andy was talking about earlier. It may be that even if you got 60% of damage to your house, it may be that your house is totaled nonetheless, in which that could create a gap, and it just depends upon your situation. That's why, you know, the inspectors are going to have to take a look at it. That's why we're going to have to take, you know, examine your individual situation. That's why this is such an incredible program that the governor has directed us to do. It's going to be 123,000 different situations. And again, even though you might not get a grant under the program, if you're rebuilding or repairing, you still may be entitled to a mitigation grant. So over and above any of that incentive grant calculation.
You know, Walter, this is why people don't need to make that decision themselves. And we're making all these, I don't keep saying it, we had all these housing counselors and all these people who specialize in these areas to help you make that decision, because in as much as you've reached that amount, but the thing is there's still monies to allow you, because someone brought it up about how much more it costs now to rebuild that same house that maybe cost you only X amount of dollars several years ago. It's going to cost you maybe twice as much now to build. So you may be eligible and don't know it. So please, by all means, sign up and get the counseling and go through the process.
Well, let me ask you a real practical question, and that is, are there going to be any contractors? I mean, it's hard to get a contractor, isn't it?
It's very hard to get a contractor right now, and that's one of our big problems. We've asked our technical colleges to help train people to work in this construction economy. It's hard to get people who have the basic skills necessary to rebuild. We want to train as many Louisiana people as possible to do this work, but it's obvious that people are coming in from out of state and even internationally from other countries coming into work. To have this much need all at one time makes it extremely challenging, and a lot of folks find themselves just waiting in line for carpenters and plumbers and electricians, and trying to fill their basic needs. This is going to be a huge challenge, and there's no easy way to answer that. There are a lot of new businesses that are coming into Louisiana providing supplies, like businesses that build windows or doors, just parts of the things that you need for a home. And while this is great opportunity, it's still not going to solve the problems quickly. I know a lot of people are already frustrated trying to get folks who know how to put a wall in, for instance, or flooring. It's a massive, massive situation. Remember that people who were damaged by Hurricane Rita as well as Hurricane Katrina are all eligible. Everybody is eligible for this program. There's no distinction between which hurricane hurt you or hurt your property.
We're going to take a short break, and when we return, we're going to have our next segment talking about rebuilding safely. When we left off, we had some questions about contractors, and Tracy, I know you had a question really about contractors and also about appraisals. What's your question? Can you please come on down and tell us a little bit more about where you're from?
My name is Tracy Treadaway. I'm from Araby, one of Mr. Leger's St. Bernard neighbors here as well. My question is actually about the appeals process. In the event that it becomes necessary for a homeowner to appeal, whether it's the pre-Katrina appraised value of your home or the amount of damage assessed, what kind of documentation or preparation can we do in advance to help expedite that process? Is it getting an appraisal? Is it a broker's opinion? Is that something that would be valid? Getting contractor estimates, that sort of thing, just to help expedite that process should it become necessary.
Well, let me give you an example in the area of the appraisal of the pre-Katrina or pre-Rita value of your home, depending on which is pertinent. And you know, in Araby, by the way, some of us got water from Rita also. So we kind of share Southwest Louisiana. But in the context of that appraisal, some people thought we ought to look at the assessed value placed on it by your property tax assessors. We generally got that kind of reaction too. Some people thought that might be just, but it wouldn't be fair. But we'll look at factors like the assessed value, but they can also look at factors like if you had an appraisal shortly before the storm. 6 months before the storm or otherwise. That's going to be rare, but otherwise, real estate people and bankers understand this better than I, but the things called AVMs, automated valuation methods, that they use in computer models in determining values, and also you look to the insured value of your home. If you don't agree with the value that the contract administrator places using a mixture or any of those methods, then you appeal it and you prove so your home is the same square footage as the one next door. Maybe there's something unique about your home, and that's just a matter of demonstrating why your home might have been more valuable. And then someone's going to, in the appellate process, that determination is going to be made. In the context of the damage aspect, kind of the same thing. That's why I'm recommending people, if they know the percentage of damage now, and they don't think they agree with it, just start documenting the extent and the nature of damage. And then it's just a matter of get a structural engineer in there, or get a contractor in there if you think that's going to be necessary. Probably a good idea to do anyway. So you might as well be preparing for that. And those are the factors, but really I think the contract administrator is going to decide the relative basis. We're going to have some input on it, but we're going to try to establish some objective criterion as much as make it easy.
Are there any appeals processes for banking or for the loan process that we need to be aware of?
Oh, absolutely. One thing, there's a fallacy that bankers are not looking to make loans. It's actually the opposite. We're looking for every way we can make a loan. And so there are many different ways that you can appeal or ask for a revisit of a loan request that perhaps has been denied.
Thank you.
I was wondering if somehow on a website that y'all could list the things and what they are, so that some of the people could understand what they will be needing to get for their homes. Like we have pre-Katrina appraisal, post-Katrina appraisal, and people don't even know what they are. I've been to a couple of ICC meetings. I don't qualify for anything yet so far because FEMA did not qualify me. But, and I am planning to move on. We do have a contract on the house in Eunice. I broke my 401k to do it. Sorry.
One of the things that this program is trying to do is to list all the opportunities on your website, as well as counselors that Senator Bajoie has been talking about.
If I don't qualify, that's fine. But I think that the people need to know what they're in for. Because when I called FEMA, FEMA said they will check into my case and see if I do qualify. But I got 8 more things to do. I've missed my demolition deadline for Jefferson Parish. I'm in unincorporated Jefferson Parish. I'm 51% substantially damaged. I've missed my deadline because it took me 3.5 months to clear my mortgage up. It took 3 months, a 3-month appointment for a shoring company to come out to let me know how much my elevation was. We can't make lifetime decisions based on what we're going to do with our homes until we find out those things. So a demolition deadline before I can find out if I need to elevate or tear my house down, I thought was unfair.
Can I just say this though? I think she highlights the fact that everybody's case is different. And so, in as much as, and I appreciate you sharing that with us, and because just as I was listening to the lady from Cameron, everybody's case is different, and mine's is different than Walter's, and I'm sure just many of yours are different than others, but that's why we need to, everybody sign up.
And we have Senator Mount over here. We've been hearing a lot from Katrina-affected victims. So this program, are you hearing from your constituents over in Southwest Louisiana?
Rita affected all of South Louisiana, but as you all know, it hit Cameron and Calcasieu and Vermilion, Jeff Davis, all the way up to Vernon. And so much of what our local constituents from that particular part of the state have experienced is a lot of wind damage. we lost over 55% of our trees, and I think something like 20,000 houses were all blue roofs. It's kind of become the blue roof, as you all know, from all parts of the state. But again, the water damage, particularly in Cameron, where basically the homes are completely annihilated. They're gone, or very little is left. And so as the surge came forward or north, then of course many of the places in northern Cameron and southern Calcasieu then experienced a lot of flooding. But we're getting really good input. People are calling and logging in and learning, how they can receive the information. And I'm real pleased with the program. I know Senator Duplessis and I have worked very closely with the administration and Senator Bajoie to make sure that we are listening to our constituents and feed that information. And I would just strongly encourage all of you here tonight and those viewing to please connect. That's the key. If you call or go up on the internet, we have a team with Andy and so many others ready to do everything possible to not only receive your input, but to get the job done, because we're about rebuilding Louisiana.
We wanted to thank our experts tonight. We wanted to thank Mr. Leger, Governor Blanco, Senator Bajoie, and Mr. Jamieson for your help and your comments tonight. We also want to thank our extra panel of experts today with Senator Mount and Mr. Kopplin and Senator Duplessis for their help. When we come back, we'll have just a few closing comments.
Well, Craig, we've just begun to answer some of the questions tonight. I think it's going to be a long, complicated process.
It really is. 9 months after the storm, we still have probably more questions than answers, but hopefully we're getting closer.
Well, LPB is going to be following some town meetings as we go through the recovery, and we're going to share some more information with you in the future. But for tonight, that's all the time we have for this edition of Louisiana Public Square. We invite you to take our full online survey about the issues we discuss this evening by going to lpb.org.
Next month, Louisiana Public Square will focus on yet another potential natural disaster. No, it's not another hurricane, but the threat of global health crisis. How is Louisiana preparing for a possible avian influenza pandemic? Thanks for watching, and good night.
This program originally aired on May 17, 2006. Since that time, Congress has authorized full funding for Louisiana's Housing Recovery Plan for hurricane-affected parishes. A home video of this program is available. For more information, call 1-800-973-7246 or write to the address on your screen.
We power hope. We power dreams. We power life. But there's one power we all have. The power to make a difference. The power to vote. Entergy. The power of people.